want to see if you know this song. If you know the song, I start to sing. I think it's singing. We'll see. If you know it, then chime in. And if there's some reason that you can't, that's okay too. So I'm going to give this a shot. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. Now, who knows who wrote that song?
I think Arlo Cowdery wrote it.
No.
And Pete Seeger also made it very popular.
No.
What do you got?
Well, I mean,
Woody Guthrie.
I met Woody.
Come to fight, sibling rivalry.
No, he comes up with the right answer.
You did. You did.
You know,
It was a great song. And did you know Woody Guthrie was a racist?
no.
Kind of sad hearing that, isn't it? He was. He was a racist. I don't think he knew he was a racist. You know any people like that? Yeah. We know people like that. Because folks like that also don't like people who are gay or trans or any of the things that we want folks to come here for, so that they can feel accepted and have a place where they're comfortable worshiping. Now I'm going to redeem Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie, when he was living in L.A., during the 40s and 50s. LA wasn't the same place in 1940 that it is now. No place in this country was the same as it is now. Woody Guthrie was from Oklahoma, Okemah, Oklahoma. And he was a product of his time. And I'm not excusing his behavior. I'm not excusing especially his language, because he used derogatory language a lot. And then he got a letter from a young black man in LA who explained to Woody why it was painful to hear him say the things that he said about African Americans. And as far as I can tell, looking at the records, he never used any of that language again. So we know people can change, don't we? We know that under the right circumstances, people can change the way they think. And yet somehow or another in this country, I feel like we've given up on changing people. What's wrong with us? That we can't be out there hammering these negative thoughts and ideas and emotions and drive them out of this world. Because maybe it's not our job. Maybe it takes a lot more than what we're doing. Labor Day. My dad was a union man. And because my father was a union man, I grew up a union kid. And I don't know how many times Mom and I and the other kids would drive Dad to a picket line. Mom figured he was safe there. See, Dad liked to drink a little bit. Sometimes he liked to drink a lot. And my mom probably figured it was hard for him to get in trouble in a picket line. But my mom didn't know picket lines. There's a bunch of people, guys primarily, hanging out with picket signs and a half pint of whiskey in their back pocket. So in a way, it was a way for Dad to feel free to do what he really wanted to do, which was drink at that time. He finally quit. So I grew up understanding unions. I grew up understanding that because my father was a member of the Brotherhood of the Carpenters Union number 405 in Santa Clara County, he could be guaranteed a certain amount of money when he was on the job. He could get health benefits for his kids. The Carpenters Union was one of the first to accept Kaiser Permanente, big company on the West Coast, for health insurance, and that solved a lot of problems for us. But now we don't hear too much about labor unions. You know, in the early days of labor unions, you might go to a picket line and get shot by the police. It happened more than once. People were there saying, hey, we need safer working conditions. We need a higher wage so we can feed our kids. But the big business, now they said bring the cops in with loaded guns and let's deal with this. And that happened quite a bit in the early years of unions in this country. First union, 1866. Bet you didn't know that. Quite honestly, neither did I until a couple of days ago. Now I know. It's good for me to know the history of who I am as a member of this society, as a member of my family. And I am still a union guy. Now, I'm not a union guy because I like my TV shows and I want the writers to start back writing again, and the actors acting, and TVing. I mean, I like all those things. But you know, in terms of what the unions went through in the early years, it's not the same. Those actors and writers and all of them are not likely to get shot. But it was a very likely thing in the early days of unions. And my dad wouldn't cross a picket line. It didn't matter who was picketing. And even after my dad was gone, I wouldn't cross a picket line. I just couldn't do it. Too much of my father's heart was in that, and when he talked about the union, he talked with his heart about the union, about how important it was. How important it was to be able to demonstrate for a thing that's necessary to the life of your child. They're having more fun than we are. Labor unions grew out of a need to protect the common interest of workers. Now, if you were a carpenter before unions, you'd get paid whenever they wanted to pay you. How many of you remember the movie The Grapes of Wrath? I preached a little on this before. Do you remember who Tom Joad was in the movie? John, who was Tom Joad? Tom Joad was the main character in the movie Grapes of Wrath. Now, The Grapes of Wrath. The old trucks trying to make it over the mountains. That was part of the movie. I'm dating myself talking about this movie because it was made in the 1930s, I believe. Tom Joad was every man in my family. They all came through Colorado to California because they thought they were going to find the land of milk and honey. That's not what they found. People from Oklahoma who landed in California were the first migrant farm workers in the state. Some folks would have considered them alien. But the big companies had bought up all the farms in the San Joaquin Valley, and that's where folks tended to settle, was in the San Joaquin Valley. So the big companies didn't want people sharecropping. They didn't want to share their crops. They didn't mind having a bunch of poor Oklahoma folks picking cotton and corn and everything else, fruit. Shoot, when I was a kid, I'd spend time with my grandparents in those fruit orchards in the San Joaquin Valley, and I thought it was wonderful. But I didn't have to pick those doggone oranges, somebody else did. And they didn't get paid much for it. Not much at all. They were migrant farm workers. Most of them lived in little colonies outside of the main city of Porterville. If you've ever been to Porterville, Porterville ain't Maine about anything. Porterville is just a little town on the edge of the San Joaquin Valley. But the reason I'm telling you this story, Tom Joad says it better than I can. He's talking to his mom. He's about to head out. Try to figure out what's going on with his world. So what he says. Then it don't matter. I'll be around in the dark. I'll be everywhere. Wherever you can look. Wherever there's a fight so hungry people can eat, I'll be there. Wherever there's a cop beating up a guy, I'll be there. I'll be in the way guys yell when they're mad. I'll be in the way kids laugh when they're hungry. And they know supper's ready. And when the people are eating the stuff they raise and living in the houses they build, I'll be there too. Tom Joad was just a character in a book by John Steinbeck. He wasn't real. But this is the only monologue in any movie that I've ever studied as closely as I've studied this. And Tom Joad says it well, because these things are still going on. There's babies starving in this community that we don't know about. And there's likely to be somebody getting beat up by a policeman here in Knoxville, because we know it happens all over. So what do? Genuine love. That's what Paul talked about in Romans. Genuine love is a willful attitude and commitment to the growth and well-being of oneself and another. It is intimacy that is achieved only when you have faced your fears, addressed your personal issues, and come to know and love yourself. It's an expression of who you are without expectations for others to do or be anything other than themselves. This does not mean that we live forever in peace and harmony and never argue about the dishes or laundry. Being committed to the growth and well-being of another involves conflict, negotiation, and exploring who we both are in a relationship while going about our daily lives. Now, I don't expect you to remember any of that. But sometimes Paul says things, and I really have to follow up with it. I need you to know what genuine love, according to Paul, is. I think I know genuine love. I feel genuine love here. And I know I feel genuine love from them kids because they don't know any better, do they? They're just kids. And they just about love everybody, don't they? Yeah. I love having kids around here. I really do. Christ lays it out for us. If anyone become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. What is your cross? Is your cross the people in this community? Is your cross some other community? Yeah, we're talking about carrying on what Christ wants us to do. Now, it's easy for me to stand up here and tell y'all what you should do. And maybe it's something we need to want to do. Amen. God bless you.
Amen.